Hello, my name is Carol Mae Whittick, spiritual life coach and your host of Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on Earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. I'm excited to share with you my newest offering, Higher Energetic Resonance Spiritual Life Coaching. When you work with me, I will support your awakening to truth and your innate gifts, aligning with your higher self, being led by your intuition, and you ascending into your purpose and your fullest expression. You will know that whatever you want to be or do is possible. I intend for you to be unrecognizable to yourself, and that your transformation will serve as an inspiration to those around you in this changing world. For more information, you can click the coaching link in the show notes or contact me on my website, carolmaewhittick.com. My guest on this week's episode is Stephanie Banks. She's an intuitive channel, mentor, and author. Stephanie's desire to channel came from her need to connect with her mother when she lost the ability to communicate verbally because of dementia. During our conversations, Stephanie shares how the ability to channel is something that is present for all of us to cultivate if we choose, the feedback she gets from her clients after their sessions, and the message Spirit wants us to know at this pivotal time. I also share what insights I received after my session with Stephanie. So as always, I begin by asking my guests. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
I feel my most her when I am in the process of my radical self-care.
Care to elaborate?
Yes. I find the most nourishment and peace and connectedness in nature when I am even just simply in my backyard garden and I'm observing the butterflies and the dragonflies and the bees and the worms and the creatures that all day long are doing their natural rhythms and life. And I don't give them a single thought until I'm out there with them, noticing the intricacy and interwovenness and interconnectedness of life.
Beautiful answer. And it's so good to remind us that nature is here, because we're always just so plugged in, literally. Somehow it persists, nature, despite everything that we attempt to do, like even in concrete, the little flowers come up. So you've always got to be respectful of what Mother Nature does. If she just wants to shake you off, then that's it.
That's right. And who could blame her?
Yeah. So, reset time. Anyway, before we go deeper into our conversation, I just wanted to give you an opportunity, Stephanie, to just introduce yourself to everyone. Just talk about who you are, your journey, what got you to who you're being today and the gifts that you have today.
Thank you. I'm Stephanie Banks. These days, I am a professional intuitive channel. Prior to this pursuit, I was a speech therapist working in medical and hospital environments, supporting people who had swallowing disorders, traumatic brain injuries, strokes, babies with prematurity, and neurological issues, all things fascinating and brain-oriented. I have always been intrigued by the incredible neurological system that we are made of, and our brains most specifically. About 15 years ago, I made a friend who was a professional channel, an intuitive channel. That just meant that she connected to souls, both on the planet and those who were on the other side. Before meeting her, I didn't know this was even a thing. I had never heard of it. It wasn't part of my upbringing. It wasn't part of anything I'd ever heard of. And when I witnessed her in the beauty and love of this connection and exchange, I knew I needed more of it. At the time, my mother had dementia, and I was finding it very challenging to communicate with her. We would often end our conversations with frustration and overwhelm and misunderstandings simply because her brain was changing and the pathways were breaking apart. And even with my clinical background, it's still my mother. And I still had, certain ways I wanted to interact with her and things that we needed from each other. So I asked my friend, would you please channel my mom's soul so I can understand from a deeper perspective how I can show up for her, because what I was doing didn't feel to be very effective. So she channeled my mother, and I learned so much from that experience. It's almost like it reconnected us on a level that transcended this human experience. And I was able to walk the rest of the way by my mom's side through the rest of her dementia, through her transition, and now to have this beautiful relationship with her from the other side, where she sends me cardinals and butterflies and signs in nature and joy and laughter every moment, really, that I'm awake and paying attention to it. I knew when I received that much healing from what my friend did for me that I wanted to learn how to do it for myself and also how to do it for others, because I can see a world in which we are not separate from the loving energy that surrounds us and exists within us, but we are working with it. We are at one with it. And channeling for me is what is a pathway to that. So I got trained. I did thousands of hours of practice, and now I do this for clients all over the world, and it is my greatest joy.
Amazing. So my question would be, and many people's question would be, when you start to develop your abilities of channeling and you're starting to tap into a communication of voice, how is it that you can be sure that that is the voice of what you're channeling, or it's not your imagination creating a narrative and getting in the way? When do you kind of pull yourself out the way, or when do you know that you are out the way and actually receiving what you're actually tapping into?
That's such a good question. What I have found is that you have to bring your imagination into the exchange, because the imagination is the place from which I channel. If I cannot imagine the imagery that's coming through, then I won't be able to connect to the significance of the message, and I won't be able to make that message functional and understandable to my client. So imagination is on board when I am channeling. It should be on board with all pursuits, I believe, in our lives, because if you look around your home or your space right now, everything your eyes will land on was first imagined
Mhm.
before it came into form. So why, as a culture or a society, we question the validity of imagination is beyond me.
Yeah.
We really need to get away from that, because imagination, it's real. It's how we create. It's how we perceive. It's how we are accessed. And so it has a place in channeling. And in terms of how do I know it's something that is coming through me rather than something that's being generated by me, that is practice. That it comes with the devoted practice of learning how to get still, get silent, create space so that spirit and souls can illuminate what's necessary for me, bring language and words and imagery forward for us to understand and be able to utilize. And that is just a lot of practice. And also along with the practice of learning how to get out of our own way is the self-care. If my self-care is poor, then my clarity suffers. And I find that I am more tired, more cranky, things aren't as clear. I will need to reschedule sessions sometimes if there's something going on in my life that is detracting from my availability to be in the joyful space. Channeling for me is pure joy. So if I'm not feeling that, then I need to check into that and replenish the stores of that.
And what do you do for self-care? You've said nature. Is there anything else that you like to indulge in?
Yeah, the list is a mile long, and they don't all feel totally indulgent because some of them involve exercise and running or something that moves energy through the body. That's a necessity for me, and I would guess many others. Our bodies are such wise vessels, and they also absorb things. So we need to be in the release of whatever we're absorbing that's not ours. So exercise and movement, sometimes it's yoga, sometimes it's weight training, sometimes it's running or walking. I also love dark chocolate. I'm not going to lie, that's at the top of my list. It's
What
my
percentage? What percentage do you go for?
oh boy, I can tolerate a pretty high percentage,
90,
80% or so. Yeah,
not
maybe
higher.
90 might be pushing it unless there's enough sweetener added that I that my tongue doesn't rebel against it.
Because I've kind of fallen out of the habit, but I used to have a really dark chocolate habit that was like, if it was like, 90s and up, so it's like practically just cocoa, and then I became a little bit of a chocolate snob. Having said that, at the moment I've kind of slipped into my sugar consumption is probably higher than I prefer at the moment. But with you saying things like moving energy and walking, I like a lot. I'm back doing a lot, like a weight training as well. And what I find is that, especially if I have an idea or there's something I really want to think about and mull over, if I then go for a really long walk and kind of pound it through, it kind of just finds itself into my body. So I hear you when you say that about moving energy and kind of getting, I don't know, it for me it just kind of grounds an idea into me by that movement.
Exactly. And we can all find, on a different day, it's going to be a different regimen for me. Sometimes it's going, a walk will be sufficient. And sometimes it's going to be a walk plus yoga plus dark chocolate plus some training plus a nap.
Mm.
Right? Rest is essential. And then I need to add a little more hydration sometimes because that's very essential. And then what is it that I'm hydrating with? So I might add, like I like to use these mushroom extracts. For some reason, they feel like they give me a little bit more clarity, a little bit more openness. I don't really know how it works, but whatever feels good, that counts as your self-care.
Yeah.
That's not harmful to you, of course. So anything that is nourishing to your body, mind, spirit, soul is absolutely, gets counted in that category.
And what I wanted to ask you is about communication with higher self, because like you graced me with a reading like a couple of weeks ago. What happened like after that and what I took the information from that was really transformative for me as well, maybe a way more activating and deeper level than I expected, because I've had people do akashic readings for me and psychic readings, and there's been information there, and it's not that I'm blocked, because I don't, if someone's going to do a reading on me, I'm going to allow myself to be open, because I know some people they'll close down, like if you're talented you will wheedle your way through. I'm sure you get that, so they're kind of testing you to see if you can wheedle your way through there energetically. But I'm always of the impression that we're always being nudged. We're always getting we call it gut feeling and heart feeling, so we always on some level know, and yet there is very few people follow through on those nudges, or they just kind of like keep it till the end until, if it's really important, then spirit will literally throw a bomb in there for them and like kind of blast them out of the situation and make it impossible for them to stay in whatever situation. And with you mentioning things like self-care that's opening you up, do you feel that there's maybe, because there's such poor self-care on a general level with people, that's kind of limiting their ability to be open, because they don't take care of themselves, because also they have this idea that we're in such a do society as opposed to be, and taking a nap during the course of the day is seen as like the most lazy thing. But when you work for yourself, that disco nap is going to help you do like a couple more bits of work later on as well. But yeah, how do you see that kind of affecting people in terms of allowing themselves to be available to hear what's coming through because of the lack of self-care?
Oh, you said it so beautifully. Absolutely, I would agree. If the self-care is lacking, then we're actually not connected to ourselves, to
Mm.
the higher place of ourselves. We are more connected to that which is distracting. And if we don't take charge of our attention, there are plenty of places that will do that for us. Social media will do that for us. The algorithms will do that for us. YouTube will do that for us. It will just direct our attention wherever it wants our attention to go. And before we know it, we're down a lot of different rabbit holes and feeling like we just wasted hours of our lives. And chances are we did.
Mm.
So it's really crucial that that we have agency over our attention, where we direct it, and that we set aside always ourselves as a priority to direct that attention inward. What needs to be witnessed, what needs to be healed, what needs to be loved, accepted, allowed, or moved aside, released. So that all counts as self-care too. Anything you do in service to your growth, to your learning, to your expansion, to your self-love, to your self-compassion is self-care. So it's absolutely essential, and that is why a lot of us are disconnected from one another for sure, but also from our essence,
Mm.
from our true selves. And it's also true that this is a really intense time for humanity on the planet. Our behaviors and our patterns have caught up with us,
Right.
and the earth is suffering deeply.
Mm.
And because we are not separate from the earth, we are suffering. We are inflicting suffering on ourselves, on each other, on entire cultures, lands, plants, animals, beings, everything.
Mm.
So this too is this place of separation will make it much harder for us to tune in, to tap into the divine loving energy that is here for us because we are accustomed to this high suffering.
I'm going to stay on the technological thing because something kind of crossed my path over the last week or so. And I don't know if you've heard of this, because there's a lot of move forward with AI and technology and things like that that are, and as a creative person, I know what creativity means to me in that connection. And then if you kind of move away from allowing that connection with source to actually feed you information, and then you just look towards technology, I don't think people realize that the convenience of that is potentially cutting them off from their source, their bigger source. And then even I don't know if you've heard of this, there is a AI, or it's kind of linked to like GPT, that is effectively creating an online avatar of yourself while you're alive, so that then your family are able to kind of like continue conversations with you once you've physically passed. And it kind of stuck with me, one, because it's called son somnium space. And I had to write it down because there's no way that was going to stay in my mind. And the inventor of it is called Artur Saichov, and his thing is called Live Forever. So it's this whole idea of creating this online avatar, which I think, for if we're on social media, we're already adding to anyway, because we're already leaving digital footprints of ourselves, because we get these memories and we get reminded of something that we did years ago, and sometimes it's a painful reminder of the ridiculousness that I used to post online. But and there was also a film that it kind of like linked in, because I remember this film it starred Robin Williams, and he played a guy who they called a cutter, and the film was called The Final Cut, where people were implanted with some sort of chip or some sort of recorder, that then his job was to, at the end of their life, kind of create an edit for their family that they could watch. So it's like, the film comes out, the fiction comes out, and then the reality or the technology comes in. And again, it's that if people are looking to technology to take over what is naturally available to them, it's, I can see that there's almost this kind of splitting away. or this ignoring, because I don't believe we can properly split away. I don't know if that is ever possible, to be in this kind of the metaverse ultimately. But there, yeah, that's kind of where a lot of technology is creating itself to go. And if people are at this point really not connected to that awareness already, it will just be, quite easy to kind of go that way and think that you're talking to something. And AI and technology is so realistic at the moment that it's getting harder and harder to know what you're looking at unless you know what you're looking at.
Yeah, you just blew my mind.
Mm.
I had no idea. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess if I think about it, because there are so many different arenas that artificial intelligence is permeating right now, it makes sense.
Mm.
I'm just sort of surprised. I suppose the benefit could be that those who are able to make the distinction between what is created by artificial intelligence and what is human and soul can have that comfort, right? Of maybe not communication as it were, but that connection perhaps to their beloved once they're no longer in body.
Mm.
However, that you're right, that can be very confusing. And for those who are not clear on the difference, that certainly they could feel like the boundaries can just become very blurred. I would prefer to see everybody. This is why I teach channeling. I want to see everybody just learn to channel. Just do that. Just
Yeah.
learn to connect, because it's not as hard as you think it is. It's really just learning. 80% of it is learning to get out of your own way.
Mm.
And then spirit's there. We're never alone. We have so many loving beings around us. So if you can learn to channel, then you won't need to rely on something outside that's reproducing something
Mm.
that's not real, or that's just kind of recycling a pattern of somebody's speech or way of thinking or way of communicating. So
Mm.
that would be my solution. Learn to channel now.
Yeah, absolutely. Quick before it looks like it's so enticing that you kind of get led down the path. I remember reading going, no way. But I suppose like if you're an entrepreneur, you're looking for avenues of, where you can use the next level of technology. Like how many years ago we thought the internet was this wild, amazing thing. And here we are now in the way that we use it. So I suppose that there's good and bad in everything. It's just that we have to make sure that when things get utilized, that the people who are doing it for good have the loudest voice, or have a clearer voice as well, so that people can choose with clarity and real knowledge, or just kind of know in their hearts that something about that isn't right. Yeah, it was news to me. I'm like, I've got to ask you this question. That's why I had
Yeah.
to write it down, literally, like basically just to really clarify for myself. But yeah, I want to talk about, so kindly you gave me a reading. It was interesting because I asked 3 distinct questions, and just over the past couple of weeks I have really just focused on unpicking the first answer, really. So I've not even gone into like question 2 or question 3, because something about it just I'm not saying that readings before haven't rung true, but this just had a different aspect of authenticity for me in
Mhm.
it as well. I listened back to it a number of times, made copious notes, and really thought about um what it is you'd said, because also I'd asked you to kind of like send message or kind of interpret what my higher self was saying. So it just really felt like a bigger part of myself.
Mhm.
And what I will say, because mainly the question that I was asking, the first question was very much about where I want to move into, in terms of I want to build like more coaching aspects and more healing and guiding as well, which has been something that's swirling around around the back of my head for a number of years. And since then, it really just kind of got everything moving. In the past couple of weeks, I've got to work in a way that sometimes I can be super industrious and then I need to rest. But it was just like this energy of getting things done is like over and beyond that I usually work with, and I'm not a lazy person. So it was not like I was like, oh my god, it was just me having more energy to go, more ideas, more enthusiasm, which sounds like I lack all these things, but there was something else that was just kind of enmeshed in all of the things that I wanted to do. It gave me an extra layer of confidence. how do you, what kind of feedback do you normally get from people when they have readings? What kind of difference does it make to them? Is that a similar to what you hear a lot from your clients?
Yes, and it makes me so excited because, first of all, I take no credit, none, for any of this. And I'd love to. My ego is totally right there at the edge saying, yeah, yeah, we did it. No, no, we didn't. But what we did together, you and I, or me and whomever I'm working with, is we created an opening for
Mm,
light and for spirit and for possibility and for openness and for release. And just simply in engaging in the curiosity, in the energy of curiosity to ask certain questions and seek certain uh, inspired communication, because that's what the channeling is. I always trust that you'll get what you need, and it moves energy just by nature of showing up, just by nature of asking a question and listening to what comes through. And what comes through, even though it's through language and words, it's not limited to language and words. It's not about just the processing it in our minds. Okay, I understand that. And so here's my marching orders, and this is the list of what I'm supposed to do. No, in the transmission, something truly incredible happens. I don't have words for it, but energy moves. Things get shifted, and then we have space for our soul's purpose to, our soul to create and to deliver on more of what it's here to do.
mm,
And my clients report a lot of lightness of being, something, like almost like they let go of something, a burden has been dropped, which allows us to move through in our journeys with a lot more ease and well-being, and like you said, confidence.
mm,
um, I also, this week, I'm still scratching my head stunned because I was working with a very dear client who had a very physical injury to her shoulder. All week since our session, she has been telling me it's healed. It's healed. Our session healed this. Now, I am not a body worker. I am not working with the energy of the body. I'm not moving anything there. I'm not a healer in that way. So I don't know. Great. I mean, amazing. She has linked it to a part, the injury occurred at a time in her life where something with a relationship kind of imploded,
mm.
and she is relating that to the timing, and something has healed for her, and her life is now pain free, is what she is reporting. And I'm very hesitant to even share it sometimes because this is a disclaimer. This is not typical. I am not a body healer. But in terms of the healing that you can receive, yeah, it transcends anything that we can understand through our minds, through our cognition,
Mm.
because we are energy. And there's a lot we don't understand about energy.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to feeling just that extra layer of oomph, and then just a sense of urgency to
Mm.
just get on with stuff now. Those little excuses or those little pauses or like wanting to think about it and wanting to push things back to the launch date, and it's not necessarily necessary. It's and yeah, it's something that you're like, who is this? Like, almost looking around going, it's me, but like me plus something. So yeah, I just wanted to feed back on you on that. So I've not even got to the point where you kind of gave me a message coming through from my mother as well. And I think that's me kind of pausing, going, knowing that's, I need to be like have space to do, and these kind of first two aspects were very much about me doing and creating something, and I've just been busy doing that, gleefully and gladly busy doing that. And I think that other aspect is just going to take me to go, okay, we can pull back now and just kind of open up to that, because a busy mind is not ready for that. I want to be respectful of, I want to be respectful of that as well. I want to also ask about global transformation. I see that we're on this kind of precipice. I've spoken about technology and kind of technology trying to impinge on people's connection, or kind of get, veer them off in another way. For me, just seeing where we are in humanity, that these are ages that have been spoken about in so many religions and modalities and everything, there's always been this knowing that there's going to be an expansion of humanity. And have you had any visions of that? How have you connected to that? What have you seen? Have you heard how Earth talks about it, or nature talks about it, or animals talk about it? Because they're not, involved in in this distracting world that we are. Like we're kind of creating all this stuff on top of it, and they're still being. So what are you hearing? Is there anything that they're trying to tell us and we're just not paying attention?
Oh, yes. It's my personal preference to listen very deeply to our wise indigenous brothers and sisters, siblings who have been in the care of this beautiful planet for endless time and understand the rhythms and the harmony and the balance that we have, that many of us have forgotten. And when we forget how to be in reciprocity with the earth, she gets out of balance just like we do, and then we see exactly what's happening right now. I don't need to list all the obvious things, but even with the obvious things, people are still denying, looking away, distracting away from it. So when I go to listen, I am listening for and digging deep into what is already known to and shown to bring us back into balance. And this is why I planted a garden, actually, because it is the most basic thing that we can do to regenerate the earth, even in our little space. And if we don't have a little bit of a backyard, then it's a pot. And if we don't have an outside, then it's a pot inside, with a plant. It's just, this is how we come back to balance and to the interconnectedness of life. So I went to the Amazon rainforest a few years ago, and that I'm still unpacking that trip, being surrounded by the energy of the rainforest and the natural balance of all species that depend on one another, and on the stewards of that land, the indigenous tribes that who hosted us. They were kind enough to invite us into their territories. Some of these are tribes that had not had previous, don't have a long-standing history of outside human contact. So that was very life-changing, and I somehow, it shifted a lot within me, where that is when I hold a vision for what's possible for humanity. It is a vision of returning to that place where we remember every day, every moment, that we are dependent on this beautiful, generous, glorious planet for everything. The clothes on our back come from the earth, the food comes from the earth, the air, water, everything. And so there's prayers and gratitude and grace for all of it. It's a constant living into, within my experience of being around those tribes, of giving gratitude and appreciation for the rhythms and for the nourishment that our planet provides for us. And that in itself can be a religion of sorts. It would be my religion of choice, actually, because it doesn't exclude anything or anyone. Everybody, all life gets included in that practice of appreciation, gratitude, reciprocity, and equal exchange. So I find that to be essential right now. It is part of the great new earth that I envision. I try to bring it into my practices. If I go out to my garden and I want to harvest some lettuce, I'm guilty of going out and just snipping some lettuce. And then I remember that the people who were kind enough to educate us in the rainforest, they give thanks to the plant first. They ask permission. May we harvest? Is it time? Is it okay? You listen. For the response, you'll get a response. And so I'm trying to bring that back into practice. It's these moments of pause that allow for our true nature to come forward, that allow for our true interconnection to life and the generosity of life to seep in. And if we are all even just a little bit more directing energy into that, being present to that, then we're getting closer to the new earth, which is one in balance and harmony to support all life.
To speak to that a little bit more, just seeing the way that things are, and I don't spend that much time there, but wanting to create that, what you've just said, wanting that to be the future that we have for ourselves and for everyone that follows, every child, every being that follows. What is it that we can do in this moment? Because especially those of us that hold that vision seem at this point to be in a minority, with people who are dealing with real life and real heavy challenges and concerns, and especially because they're being fed so much doom and gloom, and money's running out and this is running out and all the things are going to hell in a handbag. What is it that we can do, those of us who want to see that happen? How do we infuse that into, I know you can never change somebody's mind, but what is it that we can create, or what is it that we can transmit to kind of spark it in the people that are so deeply at the moment caught in, if you were to say that to them, would think that you're just speaking like out of the top of your head, and that will never happen because, look at the news and look at the world and look at my life. That is just a fairy tale. And yet there are lots of us who have a dream of, you could say, utopia. Why not? And yet there seems a majority that just have no belief that that can ever happen.
So it does seem that there's a majority that doesn't believe. My sense, however, is that we are just not seeing all who are similar of mind and heart and spirit as us.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to do with the obvious of what we see. Much of what we see is being chosen for us, even the coverage of the news. It's very difficult, near impossible, to find a balanced delivery of news stories. And so we really have to look for that, try to find that, because it is despair is being evoked constantly within all of us. And this isn't to say that there's not some deep suffering that is happening. Of course there is. There's wars, there's famine, there's refugee crises, there's the climate crisis, everything, every reason for us to be activated here. And we always have a choice to be activated from the place of fear, which has a lot less power, or to be activated from the place of love, which has a lot more power. We just have, in many cultures, the opposite has been taught to us. If we respond from fear, then that's an appropriate response, and that's a position of power. And so everybody takes up arms, quite literally. But as we see, that's not working. That's not effective. And I'm not here to discuss politics at all, or my personal beliefs about anything. But we can see what is working and what is not working.
Yeah.
And so I feel that there are more of us who are here as souls to witness and to midwife the new earth, the rebirth of humanity, the transformation to come back into centeredness, balance, and harmony. There's more of us than we know. And part of that is we haven't felt safe. Many of us have not felt safe to talk openly, which is one of the beautiful gifts that you are offering, Carol Mae, because you have a platform for speaking openly and deeply about these things. That is contributing to the regeneration of humanity and of our planet. And once we can be more open, even if it's just at first with one or two other people, that will extend. There is a ripple effect that we almost never see until we are no longer in form, in this three-dimensional experience. And by then, I don't want to say it's too late, but it's harder to tell the others, hey, keep going. It's good. It's working. Keep sharing, keep loving. But I have found that as I show up with more and more courage to tell my story and speak my truth, which is not an easy thing to do. Right. It's not always fun. It feels very scary at times. I left a marriage because there wasn't space for all of me. So it requires some very difficult decisions in order to be able to be ourselves and to have the love and space that we need to grow as souls. So my showing up with courage, you showing up with courage, speaking our truth, it adds to a collective that we don't see because it's not currently being highlighted in mainstream. So maybe we stop looking so much into the mainstream and we start either creating the circles and communities that are doing just digging in and doing the work, or we route our resources in that direction. That is something that many people can do. And I'm not talking about making major donations. If you have the blessing to be able to do that, yes, please do that. But find what breaks your heart and send some resourcing in the direction of those who are serving into that issue or that problem. I have found incredible delight in sending even small amounts of money because many people sending small amounts is changing the world.
That's good. Thank you, because I just thought, like, am I the only dreamer here? But it's
No.
it's great that because I'm like, there's no way I'm going to go out like that. Like the kind of the purveyors of doom. And because I also I work in alternative media and I see how corrupted that is as well. Like even on what is considered mainstream and then what is considered alternative is just as messed up. I kind of saw where people got steered, really. It just seemed like there was like a knowledge that there was going to be a splitting off of minds and beliefs in the mainstream, and they just needed somewhere to go, and they got caught in a kind of secondary trap. So they didn't kind of go too far out. And now over time, I think even within the alternative sphere, that's kind of given an alternative view sometimes of what is being pumped on mainstream, and it may or may not be true, may just be kind of like a nice alternative that is just kind of entertaining people as opposed to informing them. I'm finding that a lot of people within that are either kind of like playing in hard or are pulling back and going, even that's not the thing. And they're kind of, if there are people who are not giving you solutions or guidance to what you can do, as opposed to just telling you about how wrong that is and how big, and kind of pointing the fingers across the way. And it's really the opportunity and the time for us to trust more in ourselves. And going back to that reading that you gave was just kind of solidifying things that I've been dancing around of for a long time. And because there were voices in my head that weren't mine, voices in my head of people that I'd physically broken away from, but still there was that little bit of like, well, what if they see and what if they do and what if this thing, and I was just like, at what point do I stop this kind of phantom noise going on? Because then for myself as well, when it comes to, and I don't know if this is channeling of sorts, but when I really just kind of lay back and allow myself to be boundless in terms of like body and mind, that where do I end and where does my higher self begin, it becomes this just like this flood of information. And I'm always kind of waking up at certain points in the morning and just kind of like putting stuff down, but it's just really been like top level stuff now recently, where you're just like, there are not enough hours in the day, but I still do get my sleep, but there's like so much like information coming through, and it's really exciting to feel that. And then now it's like, well, how do we communicate to others that this is not something special? Like, I'm no more or less human than you. I've just decided that I'm just going to go with it and see, what have I got to lose at this point? If the opposite is like total annihilation for humanity, then that's the only way to go, right? And really just give it a try and see what happens. And I can truly attest, like, the more you just go like, F it, let's just go. Let's just like listen to everything that I'm being told and let me try it. And miracles, I would say, have happened, like a shift in, you can call it mindset, but it feels like even more than mindset, because it's not mind. And just like information that like directed to books to read. One that I'm reading at the moment is a Neville Goddard one, Out of This World, which is a really like one of his maybe more obscure ones, which is very, very much talking about fourth dimension, which I never realized that he ever spoke that way, because I knew he referenced the Bible a lot, but he's talking about, if you want to see yourself doing something, what you're doing is, if you can, like you say, of imagination, if you can go into that realm and see yourself doing it, it exists already. So you just have to get yourself into that energetic and flow state and live from that point, and then it just comes through. And I think we forget that we are exuding and creating in every moment, and we kind of give people these, like, they're a creative person and I'm just, not.
Yeah. Oh, you said so much rich stuff in there. Um, humans are creatures of habit and repetition,
Mhm.
and we create our own habits. And a habit is just something that you practice over and over, kind of like a belief is just a thought that you think over and over. So you presume it to be absolute truth for you, and therefore you claim it as your belief. But if you start thinking a different thought, even in direct opposition to what you previously believed, you can have, lo and behold, a new belief. And so we are truly limitless with this. But creating new habits is work as well. Like, it requires a level of dedication, awareness, and devotion. So you were speaking of the phantom noise that comes from maybe old relationships or old patterns or things that we were taught as children that maybe never rang true, but we held them because that's what we needed to do, because we were dependent on others. So it's easier to adapt to and even adopt their belief system in order to get our needs met. And that's what's necessary. And then our job as adults, I believe, is to sort of unravel a lot of that, re-examine it. We don't have to reject, but re-examining is really important, because then we can feel, our bodies will tell us what is true, what rings true, what feels right, what do we want to keep, and what can we bless back to that person or origin or family that for whom it may or may not be working, but it's really not our business, because if it's not working for us, that's all we really need to know. And then when we do that, we're living in a different energetic. And then others who have similar resonance or similar frequency, or are just curious about what we're up to. And it doesn't have to be professionally at all. People are just drawn to certain types of energy. They don't have the words to say, oh, I like that person because of such and such. It's just a draw. And then before we know it, we have community, or we can create community, or we are a model or leader of sorts, that we weren't even trying to be. And that up levels us yet again, because when we know that others are benefiting from the way we're living, or the things that we're saying, we want to do that more. It's just a natural place that we want to generously offer. Humans are a generous species. We want to see well-being for others. That is our natural state. You have to go through a massive unlearning and reteaching to think opposite. And that has happened, certainly, to great many groups and et cetera. But we can also unravel from that and re-examine that and reclaim for ourselves what is in the highest service. That's always the question. Before I do a channeling session, I ask, may I please be a clear, high vibrational vessel for that which will be in the highest service to this person, to their family, to their community, to the beings that surround them. Because if we are in the highest service, which we will not understand from a place of cognition, because that's up to spirit to determine what's in the highest service, then that's the place, that's the starting place, I believe. So I love everything that you just said. And our people, they're here already with us. Many of them, I believe, we have agreed as souls prior to taking birth in this lifetime. Hey, will you come into this really sticky lifetime with me, and we'll play this out, and it's going to be rough. Remember, there's going to be all this stuff and this mask that we wear, and these smoke and mirrors, and this trickery, and we're going to doubt ourselves. But will you play this role so I can open up to that and realize this part of myself? And yeah, I'll do that for you. And will you do this for me? And it's intricate, and it's cool, and it's amazing. And there's so much more than what we see with our five sensory experience. Thank goodness for that. Yeah, it's a journey.
It is for sure, isn't it? I was writing a piece earlier because I'm doing a project with someone where we're talking about awakening, and they just wanted me to write like give a testimony about your awakening, and like the last sentence was like, yeah, it's never over. I'm just like, is that? And I'm like, well, like, is that a positive end? I'm like, but it's a truthful end, and like, I don't have a the fact that it's never over, it means that there's always those little bits that you're like, oh, I could have done that better. But you go round, it's like you go round in circles, like you kind of pass the same stop again and again and again. And it's just about how you react or respond, or don't even notice. That you've really kind of moved out of it, where it turns up again and it's got nothing on you. you know
Yeah. Yeah.
we all know that one as well. But yeah, when I wrote it and I just put like the last sentence because I just wanted to end it with some punch, and I'm like, yeah, and well, it never ends. I'm like, I don't know if someone who's coming to this, it's for people who are just kind of starting out and are feeling that they've had an awakening to the world and kind of the deceptions and the lies of the world, and fair enough, you've had that awakening and things are not what you seem. So what do you do with all of that? Because instead of running around trying to wake people up, which is a complete
Right.
waste of energy.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
but even that, you kind of like, when you first have this realization that things are different, one, it can be scary, and I can get why people hold on to the deception so much, because there's a comfort in what you know. But for me, it's always been like finding out that things are not necessarily the way that I've believed it for a long time has actually given me a freedom, in that, oh, it's not set in stone like that. So yeah, maybe there are things about that I need to learn that are murky and dark, but it just means that what I thought was not the truth. There's a way out of this. But then you remember, just don't try and go around banging people on the head. Just kind of
Right.
move forward and go deeper into your own self and open the world up, so that as and when and if and should they decide that in this lifetime that's the journey that they want to take, then they can, like, find out what you're doing, where you've gone after that, so that you can have like you say, that kind of impact, and feel that you're doing something, as opposed to frustratingly trying to like impose your views and your awarenesses on them, because no one appreciates that, really.
Yeah.
Well, no one appreciates that, full stop. It's never really. For somebody who is really interested in kind of discovering what they've got in, what they can do in terms of like, how can I test out this channeling piece? How can I kind of like, in before I go to like a school, or step out, what are the practices, what can I do in my own space, in my own time, to just start to peak that awareness and start to kind of open up and see that there is more to the five senses, and I do have a connection with higher aspects of myself, and then also higher aspects of nature and Gaia and the universe, and however infinitely wide it is.
Yeah. That's a great question. I always recommend people get out in nature more. That's sort of the foundational piece. If we're disconnected from our own nature,
Mm.
then true nature, the life that exists outside of our walls, will bring us back into connection. So let that be a primary practice, even just for a few moments, several times a day. Just get outside of the concrete of the walls of your home.
Mm.
I find that for many people, for many of my clients, the process of writing is very helpful. I consider writing to be another form of channeling. Channeling is just connecting to divine energy and wisdom. That's not just outside us, that's what we are made of. So if you can get to a place of open-mindedness and open-heartedness and get to an energy of curiosity, you can channel through writing. Sometimes it's called automatic writing. Sometimes you can write a question that you are grappling with onto the paper, and then do something to prepare yourself, release some energy. You can just shake your body, just to shake some things from the day off, or go for a walk, or light a candle, or burn some sage, whatever will set a tone for a more sacred exchange. And then just let your hand and your pen be guided to write a response to the question, or just moving out whatever needs to be. It doesn't even have to be in words. You might find yourself doodling. You might find a piece of art at the end of this. The key is, don't play the editor. You're going to use, if you are starting to edit and question, that's your left hemisphere. That's not what we're engaging when we are in intuition. We want the right hemisphere. So just allow for the flow and the practice. And then the third thing that I find to be absolutely essential is meditation. But meditation doesn't have to be where you sit in Om for an hour and have no thoughts. I've never achieved that. So
you have to live in a cave in the Himalayas and just before you get to that peace. No.
Yes. I always say that successful meditation is getting even just a nanosecond of space between your thoughts. There's so much room there for clarity and for spirit to see, look, they're available right now. Here, we're going to give an image. Here, we're going to give a little bit of an inspired nudge. We're going to give something, whatever transmits in that little bitty space between your thoughts. And so that's something to celebrate. And meditation is called a practice because it requires practice. I do not consider myself good at meditation, but I have to keep showing up to it nonetheless, because without that, I become my thoughts, and that is a scary pursuit.
I'm laughing because I know as well. It's a recognition of that. Yeah, I can. It's interesting over the years the different kind of meditations that I've tried, really, and I just find at this point in time it can be different things. Sometimes it is a moment of just sitting in silence, but of course it's not silent because I live in the world, so there's always some noise somewhere, even if it's far away. And then there's the kind of the churning of the mind that goes on. But even just like not making any noise and not moving around and just allowing myself to be still and allowing all the little tensions, like the one is a very simple one of just working my way through the body and just releasing every single muscle. You'd be surprised where you're holding tension, even an eyelid or there's just always like a tiny bit of tension in you that you're never aware of, and in that just letting go of just trying to be like free of anything is it's an exercise in itself. I mean, your mind takes your mind around your body, and sometimes that's a good thing for many people, because I think they're not necessarily in communion with their body, to really understand what their body is telling them, or if they've got thoughts that where they hold, because I realize I do clench even when I don't realize, and then I'm like, hang on a minute, cut. Stop. So yeah, meditation could be so many things, or just going for a walk and just you run, so you kind of get into that. I've never been a long distance runner, I was always a sprinter, but a good walk and a good kind of working it through is a meditation. So I think that word kind of intimidates people because they have an idea of what it should look like, and it can be anything where you're with yourself. I think
that's it. Yes. And just to be clear, I am not a runner. I just sometimes run for a short bit of time, not fast. I think a 2-year-old could keep up with me. And it's strictly just to release energy that has built up, just to get the heart rate going and my body really moving, and like the impact on the pavement. I count meditation when I go out into my garden. I'm not sitting in like a concerted effort to release my thoughts. I'm just letting my eyes land on the beautiful creatures that are around me. And that is creating space from my thoughts. And it's bringing me back to the truth of our interbeing. And every action that I take is either in service to or against life. It is just true. There's really nothing neutral. It's either for or against. So if we use those two categories, we can really clarify how to be part of the healing that we came here to be part of.
Perfect. And before you go, can you just let everybody know where they can reach you if they want to kind of find out more about you and contact you for reading and work with you?
Sure. My website is soulinsight.com, SOUL insight.com. And on social media, I am Stephanie Intuitive Channel.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for the conversation that we've had today. I've really appreciated it, and I'm still as well reeling from the reading that you did for me a couple of weeks ago. There's so much information that for me there to unpack that I'll let you know. Definitely.
I'm so glad, and I'm so grateful to you. Thank you for creating this opportunity for deeper conversations that have an impact.
Thank you, Stephanie, for an amazing conversation. And once again, thank you for gifting me a session with you. It was truly an eye-opening experience. And thank you all for listening. You can contact me on my website, carolmaewhittick.com, carolmaewhittick.com. I'm on Instagram as Casmic, CAZMICK, my name on Facebook, and the Telegram group is Her Conversations and Inspirations. As I mentioned at the beginning, I am now offering spiritual life coaching sessions, higher energetic resonance spiritual life coaching sessions. And this is an opportunity for you to truly discover who you are on a more expansive level than being solely physical. But if you want to make some drastic changes in your life on the physical plane, this is an opportunity to be guided to that higher energetic resonance of yourself. All the links are in the show notes. So until next week, have a great one. See you soon. Take care.